morning, everyone, and welcome to our July 2017 Borough Board meeting.
So that's, my report is just going to be held.
The first order of business is the adoption of the July 20th, 2017 Borough Board agenda, which is before you. Do we have a motion to adopt? We have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, we have the motion, we need a motion to adopt the June 15, 2017 Borough Board minutes. Yeah, so moved, okay?
Second.
Okay, so moved. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Just as a reminder, this is being live webcast, so that you can see this on the Borough President's website, just so that when you're walking around, you stay clear of the camera angles. In addition to that, we have a Borough Board meeting this month, which is this one, and then we also have one in August, just in case there was any confusion about that. We have to meet every month, but I think we could creatively come up with something in August if we don't have to meet. All right? The first presentation we have is the Community District Needs Statement and the CB Budget Request Process. We have members from the Department of City Planning and the Office of Management and Budget here as well. Do we have the presenters here? If you could just come on up, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Yes.
Morning.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning. So my name is Carolyn Haggerty. I'm from the Office of Management and Budget, the Community Board unit. So I'm joined with one other colleague, Lester, from our unit, and also Arundaki and Jorge from the Department of City Planning. And our teams work together jointly on the process of community boards submitting your formal submissions throughout the year, or once per year, and work with you throughout the year, interacting with the city's budget. So just as a brief overview of what we'll be covering today, we're just going to give an overview of the city's overall budget process, and then how the community boards fit into that. Also the use of the online form, and that is the form where community boards submit your needs statements and budget requests, and other helpful resources to help you prepare these submissions. And then after you submit, when to expect the responses to your submissions, and then an overview of the upcoming borough budget consultations, which for some of you this may be kind of a refresher, and others it may be new material, so just kind of let me know if you have any questions at the end, and we can go back and cover any more specifics. So the city's budget, overall, there are three main phases of when documents come out throughout the year in preparation for the fiscal year to begin on July 1st. So first is the January plan, or the preliminary budget. And the charter states that this comes out January 16th. Sometimes it's flexible around that date. But this preliminary budget includes the agency's departmental estimates, kind of some updates from the previously adopted budget, and financial plan. So this is kind of a rough draft sort of thing. I mean, it's official documents, of course, but kind of a first look at what the upcoming budget will look like. The executive budget comes out April 26th. This is also known as the mayor's budget. So this is a much clearer view of kind of what the budget will turn out to be. More specifics on specific initiatives or other funding changes in the budget. And then the adopted budget comes out early June, we hope. And this is adopted by the city council and signed by the mayor. So throughout this whole process, these are the main stages, but you'll see that throughout the year, there are many different parties collaborating on this and that have specific roles in putting it together. And then finally we come to July. Sometimes it's hot in July outside in the city, and that's always the time where the new fiscal year begins. So we are now in fiscal year 2018. So, where do the community boards fit into this? So the community boards, if you're looking at the calendar here, really before the preliminary budget is when the agencies want to start looking at what they'll be changing for the new year, funding for the next fiscal year. So the submissions for the community boards happen before the preliminary budget. And the submissions are put into our system through an online form. And this unifies both the community district needs statements, which is more of a long-range, local issue narrative statements, and also the prioritized specific budget requests. And we ask that these budget requests are limited to 40 capital requests and 25 expense requests. And then depending on your board's bylaws, you probably vote on the priorities and these budget requests before they're submitted. And it's appropriate that this box here is in orange because this is how our office celebrates Halloween. October 31st is the deadline for the submission of this form. Okay, so I'll get into more specifics. The form itself is broken into 7 different policy areas. And this was put together by the team at City Planning, going through the past 10 years of needs statements that used to be submitted on an individual basis in different formats, may focus on different things. So they found, okay, I don't know what, sorry, I'll just keep this down here. They found that these were the 7 main areas that you can fit the city's agencies into. That address the main concerns that the community boards raise. So the 7 policy areas are healthcare and human services, youth education and child welfare, public safety, core infrastructure and city services, land use, housing and economic development, transportation, and parks, cultural and other community facilities. So within each of these 7 policy areas, the form asks that you first select your most important issue. And this is just a general initial input that is able to be aggregated, and City Planning puts together great maps and stuff for each agency in these policy areas. Next is the needs. So this is really where the board is able to submit your narrative statements on each of the policy areas, and may specifically talk about your community and your unique needs within your community, in your district. And then lastly are the specific budget requests. So these are sent over to specific agencies, and we'll talk later on how they respond to them. But this is kind of how the form breaks it up and focuses on the different policy areas, while giving, it's kind of a general overview in 7 areas with specific inputs to each of them. And this form is now open, so the boards are able to start working on it, and again, the submission date is October 31st this year. So how do you put together what you're submitting? So there are different ways to gather information for the needs and requests. And like I said, these are, the budget comes out, boom, 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 3 specific dates, but throughout the whole year, there's preparation going on and dialogues happening. So for the community board specifically, there are 2 different types of consultations that the boards may have with agencies. First are the district consultations, so this may happen in late spring, around June. And so again, this is right before the fiscal year will begin for the next year, but it's a time where you kind of have a good feel of what will be in the budget. You've received responses from the agencies, which we'll get to in a second. So you're able to have these discussions with agencies and follow up on requests to see if their responses made sense and what you should submit for the next year. So those are district consultations. And then borough consultations are put together by our team. It's across the month of September, early October, so those are coming up. And OMB puts these together. It's the meetings between community board district managers and the agencies. So those are set scheduled meetings, and they're held on the borough level. So Manhattan will work together to put together agendas for those meetings as a borough. And they discuss, kind of borough-wide issues and maybe some common themes throughout the borough that can really be addressed at these meetings by the higher level agency representatives. You can also, the boards also host public hearings, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, before the budget request submission. So this can happen, late summer through the October submission date, end of October. And then after the preliminary budget comes out in January, the boards will hold public hearings to hear reactions on the preliminary budget. And this is also when you receive responses from the agencies on your requests. So this is a public hearing to hear reactions to the preliminary budget and also help you prepare a letter of comment, which we'll discuss in a second. But this is a community board's formal submission, a letter to the agencies, to the mayor, to the council members, to the borough presidents on what your reaction is to the preliminary budget and responses to your formal submission that you submitted in October. And also, other than hosting public hearings, you can testify at public hearings. So these are held at the Borough Board. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I'm just kidding. The Borough Board public hearing, which would happen also after the preliminary budget in February, and City Council hearings, which are also timely with the budgets coming out. So there's one in March between the preliminary, right before the executive comes out, and then in May, but after the executive and before the adopted budget will come out. So there are also specific documents that can help you prepare your submissions. On OMB's website, you can always get information on expense and capital budgets, and all of past year's information is also on there, so it's great to kind of look back and see what the trends have been. Also, your registers of boards requests. So after you submit late October, with each budget phase, each board will receive responses to your requests. So for the preliminary budget, it's from the agencies, they respond, and then executive and adopted are responses from the OMB task forces on the funding status and viability of your requests. Also, district resource statements are put out by our team. These are statements on the 15 top service agencies, and they're really great informative documents. They break up service delivery items within each of your districts. So for example, there's a libraries district resource statement. There's great information on each of the branches, the circulation data, attendance, things like that from the past year. And also the capital commitment plan is on OMB's website. On the city planning website, there's your statement of community district needs. This is your form submission from previous years. And also citywide statement of needs. So those are great resources to see what's been submitted in the past and kind of following up on what has happened from those submissions. Also, the Office of Operations puts out the Mayor's Management Report. And this is a very informative document on each specific agency and what kind of services they provide. It's written by the agencies and they kind of discuss what their mission is and what services they provide. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Erin Duffy from City Planning to discuss the great resources that they have on their website.
So, hi everyone, I'm Erin Duffy. So in addition to all the budget documents that are available that the city produces that Carolyn went over, DCP actually has like a wealth of information on our website, and I want to spend a few minutes sort of talking about them and how you can actually use them to help understand the needs in your own community. You guys have your ear on the ground, you know what your community's top issues are and what their needs are, but how do you connect that with actual data? So for example, if you want to help articulate a particular need and you need a data set that actually shows the percentage of people in your district that actually, what their education level is, what the poverty level is, we have all of that information on our website. So the first thing is something called the actual community portal. So you can go on our website and look at the community portal, and what we've done is we've broken out a whole series of information at the community district level. So you can go into your district, if you're Manhattan 1, you can go into Manhattan 1, and it has a wealth of information that's just there. And not only that, we've put in mapping resources for you, so if you want a blank map of your district, if you want a street map of your district, if you want a land use map of your district, we have all of that stuff there. And if you want any special cuts of maps and you don't have any sort of GIS capabilities within amongst your staff, you can call Jorge and myself. We're very happy to help you put together like a custom map as well. But we've also built other tools that can help you build custom maps. One of the new tools that we built, which we're very excited about, is something called the New York City Facilities Explorer. And I encourage you to go today and look it up. It's really exciting. And what we've done is, the city mandates Department of City Planning to publish a list of every single city-owned, leased, and permitted facility in New York City. And what we've done is we've actually created this incredibly accessible tool where we've mapped out every single facility that's there in the city, and we put it into this very easy-to-use interactive map. So you can go in, you can zoom into your district, you can look at all the schools that are there, all the sanitation garages that are there, any daycare, childcare facilities, any type of city-owned, leased, or permitted facility, including state-funded ones, are on there. And if you need any help using it as well, again, give us a ring, and we're happy to show you how to do it. And from that, you can actually cut out a specific map. So if you want a specific type of facility that you want to talk about, you can do that too. And the other great thing about this is that we're continuously adding additional data to it. So for example, if you do go into the school data, we've actually added the number of school seats and the school utilization on there as well. So you can immediately click on a school and see what its capacity is.
What's the URL of that?
Sorry, this is the New York City Facilities Explorer.
How do we get the URL?
Oh, the URL. It's capitalplanning.nyc.
Thank you.
Or you can just go to NYC. There's like a huge icon there that you can like get to it as well.
Does that include vacant lots?
No, but I'll get to vacant lots in a second.
Okay.
The third tool that I'd like to talk about is ZOLA, which is our zoning and land use application. So that is, again, something you can go into your district and you can look at two things. You can look at what the zoning is on any lot, given block or lot. You can also look at what the land use is. And if you go into the land use, if you click on that land use, and you can sort by land use types, if you select vacant lots, you can look at all the vacant lots in your particular district, or in a block if you like, or in your entire district. So that's where you would find the vacant lot data. But you'd find the zoning on that as well. So you can see what the vacant lot is, and you can see what the zoning is, and you can see what could be built there.
Okay.
And then the last, again, online mapping tool that we've created is the New York City Census Fact Finder. So this actually uses our US Census data as well as ACS, which is American Community Survey data, and we've again mapped everything out here. And it's not just by the community district level, we've actually broken it down to the neighborhood level and the census tract level. So you can go in, and if you have a specific neighborhood, so for example, you want to look at just Chelsea, you can click on that as well, and not just look at it in the context of the entire district. And you can look at any type of demographic information, so age, poverty, education level, income, housing units, housing occupancy, any type of demographic data that the US Census collects will be on there. So I strongly encourage you to do this. It'll really help sort of, either it can do two things. It can help you start and see like what the base level is in your district, or it can also confirm what you already know, or it can help articulate your existing needs narratives as well. I will say that DCP and OMB together, we hold training sessions on how, for new DMs as well as for committee members, on how to use the form itself. And during that, we like dive a little bit more into how to use these specific tools as well. So to the extent you want to send your staff to this training to learn how to use these specific tools, you should send them along to the training sessions. Yeah.
Do you have the dates of those trainings published?
We haven't published them yet, but we know that they're either going to be on the 14th or the 16th of August, and then we'll probably have another session. So I don't want to confirm, but it'll be that week.
There will be an email sent out
Yeah.
within the next few days with those dates.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions?
I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions. That's your last slide?
There's one. We're going to talk a little bit about how agencies respond to community board budget requests, and then maybe do a little bit on the borough budget consultations, and then we'll open the floor to questions.
I'd love to get copies of this presentation to share
Yeah.
of the
Can
thoughts.
we email what you sent us? All right, we'll be able to email
Perfect.
what they've sent us.
Thanks.
Okay, so as Aradafi said, I'll just wrap up a bit in discussing the responses to your submissions. So again, you submit in late October, and this gives the agencies time to see what you're really submitting and be able to put together their responses, and looking at their departmental estimates, which come out in the preliminary budget, so incorporating your requests into their preliminary budget. So with the preliminary budget in January, around January 16th, comes out your responses, and these are emailed to you, and they're also posted on OMB's website, the Register of Responses. So for each of your budget requests, there's an agency response. And after receiving these, the boards hold a public hearing and put together a letter of comment or a statement on the preliminary budget. This is your opportunity to write a letter to not only the agencies but elected officials to see, your response to their responses in the preliminary budget. And this again is before the executive budget, so it will be taken into consideration for that. Actually, what our unit does is we ask that your letters are kind of organized by agency, and we're able to send your specific comments on that agency directly to them. And we also send them to the OMB task forces, and these OMB task forces are associated with, each agency has a task force, and they are the ones that provide responses for the executive and adopted budgets in April and June. So again, it's another register that will be emailed out to you and on OMB's website with the responses to your requests. And now kind of jumping into borough consultations, because these are upcoming. They're happening in September, and boards and your district managers have been putting together the agendas for these. Again, these are a month of meetings between boards and the agencies organized by our team. And I'll bring up a calendar in a second so you can kind of see, but throughout the month there are 13 different days total. Each borough has 3 days of meetings, except Staten Island has 1 day. So Manhattan will be meeting on the first 3 Wednesdays of September. And these are full day meetings, so they run from 9:30 to roughly 4 p.m. Meeting with different agencies, about 5 or 6 different agencies per day. So they're packed days of meetings with agencies, but because of that, we try to make them kind of as organized as possible. So first, the boards will submit agendas. Again, these are worked together on a borough level. And these agendas really should focus on kind of borough-wide concerns or shared common trends throughout the borough. And then we send those agendas off to the agencies, and we ask them to provide written responses in advance of the meetings. That way, while everyone puts their feet in the door, everyone's kind of on the same page. And these written responses aren't meant to take away from the dialogue that happened at the meetings. It's just to kind of get a formal response in writing to the agendas that were put together. So at the meetings, you can follow the agenda and written responses, but also have a dialogue and follow-up questions, because the agency representatives will be there. And again, OMB coordinates this whole calendar and all the details that go along with event planning, basically, and we get everyone in the room at the same time. So again, this is the calendar. It's coming up, and they always start right after Labor Day and finish first week of October. And that's the end of our presentation. So I know we covered a lot of ground, basically covered the whole year of the budget process, but we can open the floor to any questions.
Thank you. Questions? I know there are a lot of questions and comments. Yes?
Yeah, I'm sitting in for Rick Evers and Claude Winfield, first vice chair, Community Board 6. I have one that maybe seem a little bit off topic, but could you go back to the page that said documents to help prepare? Yeah. Where it says DCP,
Yeah.
it says citywide statement of needs. This is something that we can utilize to help us prepare for the budgeting process. No, let me ask my question.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Do you ever do training on that particular item and how it relates to chapter 203 and 204 in the city charter? And what the community board's responsibility is in terms of replying to that particular statement?
We don't do specific training with community boards, but I think does the Manhattan Borough President's Office do work on what the community board's responsibilities are in terms of how they participate in different processes?
See, that particular document will cite facilities that are gonna
That's
be
right,
placed
yeah.
in your district,
Mhm.
removed from your district,
Mhm.
or transferred. That
Yeah.
might become critical in doing your budgeting
Exactly.
priorities, knowing which agency is planning to cite a operation in your district.
Absolutely, which is why it's up there as a resource. that
No,
you
but I'm
should
saying,
use.
does anybody do any training for the community boards to understand that process?
That's a good point.
In terms of our office, I don't know if we've done training specific to the citywide statement of needs. I'll take that back to Matthew Washington, the Deputy Borough President for Budgets and Policy, and see if we can do a specific training around that. I do know we have a training around the role of the community board and the development and statement of district needs, but this is a slightly different one.
It's
you're
slightly
talking about.
different, that's
Yeah,
right.
so, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Lucy? Yeah, I'll definitely take that back and see if we can do a training specific to that, right? Yes.
Thank you very much. This presentation is very helpful, and I'm going to share it electronically once we get it through BP's
Okay.
office with the rest of the board. I have, I guess, one comment and then a question. The comment, the first slide, or one of the first slides where you actually had the sort of the timeline process, I think we actually deserve top billing because we have that October 31st required deadline ahead of all that for the next fiscal year budget. So, and that's how I explain it to people that ask, like how the budget, how a bill becomes law, how the budget happens. And I say, well, it starts with the community boards. It's a matter of optics, but I think important ones that like we have the first deadline in the evolution of the budget. The second, and this is my question, so our district needs statement is a little longer than I think your current word limit. Have you received, and so what we've done is actually kind of have two. We have the one that we publish on our website, which is a little longer, and then we have the one that we submit to you that confines to your word limit. Have you received any feedback, because I know that word limit is somewhat new, maybe the last two cycles, on whether that's been working for folks, and if they were more wordy like us, what they did to kind of adjust.
Sure. I'm happy to talk about it. So the first year, we've done it 2 years now. The first year we definitely heard in our feedback sessions with the district managers that we needed to extend the word limit, which we did. And the second year we actually have heard, you're the first person who's mentioning the word limit because we extended it by quite a lot.
Yeah.
And so we know that this year we haven't heard anything back. What I will say is one of the things that we have put in there now is that for the district needs statements, if there is an additional information that you want to add, you can attach it as a document, and we create a hyperlink PDF for that additional document that's put in there.
Okay.
I will also give you feedback from agencies, some of them who we send these need statements out, and they actually really like the new format as well. But I think there are two different things you're talking about. One is your overarching needs statements, which I completely agree, you should be able to articulate to the extent that you can whatever your needs are, and that we've actually extended the word limit considerably. So what I would do is maybe go back and see what the form is now, and if the word limit still doesn't work, then maybe give us a call and we'll try and work something out. But in terms of the agency-specific needs, that's definitely nothing, we've not heard any complaints from other boards.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, my name's John Murray. I'm representing Vicky for Community Board 5. So my question is, after the April mayor budget has been submitted to City Council, leading up to the adoption date, what is the mechanism for feedback back to the community boards? Because it seems like in the presentation and the description, the letters have stopped and it's now kind of in the hands of negotiation. So what's the feedback loop that says, okay, this is what happened during the negotiation, this is why, or just something that, how do we know other than it's just published and then we glean from what we do?
So this is, so executive budget comes out April, and then the next one is early June. So with the executive budget, you do receive responses from OMB, and that's the first time you receive OMB's responses. And like you're saying, yes, this is kind of the area where, I guess I would say it's there's no formal community board input, but there are still discussions that can be had. This is leading into when district consultations can also take place. It's kind of that weird overlap time where you may be looking forward to the next year, but also trying to finish up and get your input into this year, the end of this preparation for the fiscal year. So I guess my answer would say, these are when district consultations are starting to drum up, and these are times when individual discussions with agencies can provide you updates on what may be changing between the executive and adopted.
But those, I'm sorry, just to clarify, those would not be a requirement, those would have to be proactively initiated by the individual
Yes.
boards with the agencies
Yes.
or the council people represented.
But the charter is behind you to facilitate those meetings. Lester's going to ask.
Yeah, excuse me, and it wasn't in the presentation, the council holds hearings after the presentation of the executive budget during the month of May, excuse me, and the community boards or representatives of the community boards, as well as the public, can testify at those public hearings in May to the council.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we collectively have, Callan's mentioned this a few times during the presentation, that the conversation between community boards and agencies has to happen throughout the year. And there are different processes and meetings that we set up that can help facilitate those discussions, but really it's an ongoing process that happens throughout the year. The community board submission is just one part of that ongoing dialogue. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Jesse Cody, District Manager for CD4. Can you expand on the difference, or if there is a difference, or what the rate is between when we get the initial responses from the agencies to our requests? Then I know this year there was what was called an enhanced response, which I think if folks here have seen those, that would be highly appreciated, because they give a little more depth to the reasoning behind the agency. But then there's the OMB response, right? And what's the difference, or what's the weight of OMB responding? They're responding really to the agency's response, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so they, to be honest, oftentimes OMB will agree with the agency's response. And that may be the agency saying that it's not possible, try again next year, or we'll look into this. So if it's kind of a vague response, that's when the follow-up happens. As you mentioned, with the preliminary budget, we've given the agencies the ability to provide some additional information on top of their kind of formalized responses. And those are emailed to the boards. And these, the hope is that those will provide some additional information, project-specific information on that specific request. And OMB does see this. I guess to speak on the weight of OMB versus the agency response, it may seem that the OMB response is more of a funding decision response. So they may be more straightforward in saying there's no funding for this, because that is kind of OMB's role as the oversight on the budget. But again, OMB does often agree with the agency, because the agency is the one really on the ground floor who knows the projects more specifically. So I'm not sure if that cleared it up at all, but the OMB response tends to be a little bit more funding specific, whereas the agency may say, we'll accommodate this within additional within existing resources, contact us.
That's helpful. No, that is
Yeah.
helpful.
Just to add to that, the agencies have a fair amount of leeway in running their own agency. OMB's role, as Carolyn said, is to make sure that the agencies don't exceed their budgetary limitations, and of course to reflect the mayor's priorities. So, if those two things are met, OMB will, pretty much agree with the agency's response, but only if the agency has indicated, something that goes against what their budget would allow, the agency's budget would allow, or what City Hall policies might be, will OMB contradict the agency's response?
Any other questions?
Other questions? Yes, Marie?
Thanks. So I had a question about the feedback, the ongoing feedback to the online forum. So you mentioned that you had sort of addressed the word count limit, but I know that last year there were lots of different suggestions and feedback from different parties on using the forum. Like, how much has that been integrated into the new version of the forum? And then my other question is about the written responses from budget consultations. Are those published publicly online? And if not, can they be? And also, in terms of like the representation from the agencies in budget consultations, like how do you ensure that for every agency there's somebody there who is the responsible person that can answer the questions there? Specifically, last year it was DOB that sent a liaison, and there wasn't really somebody there to answer the questions.
I'll answer the first question and I'll get the second one. So with the first question as it relates to the feedback sessions, we've been very proactive in engaging the community boards in feedback both last year and this year, and they sort of, largely the feedback has been grouped into 5 categories. So one's on the structure of the form itself and how it's organized, including like word limits. The second thing is on how the form is actually being used. The third one is on training and support that we provide. Then the fourth one is on agency responses, and the last one is on the borough budget consultations. And so with regards to, so the first 3 as it relates to the form and the training, we've actually been able to accommodate almost all of the recommendations to the extent that the platform itself allows us to make some of these changes. We are working with actually quite a very difficult platform for us to manipulate. It's free, it's run by the city, so we kind of have to work within that environment, and we have done a lot. We made a lot of changes, but definitely other things that I'm sure we'd like to make it more user-friendly, but we're limited by the technology. And with the training and the support as well, we do provide a lot of hands-on training for boards, and we sort of listen to it. With the agency responses, we actually updated the way the agencies actually respond, and Jesse sort of alluded to it as well a little while earlier. We added this enhanced register, which has been, we've got some positive feedback from the boards. And with the borough budget consultations, we've also made a lot of changes. We now have heads, so for example, every single district manager now nominates someone to help put an agenda together. We're using an online platform to help collect these agenda questions, to capture answers to these questions. So we are continuously iterating, we're continuously moving forward, and we feel and we hope that we are responsive to boards just because of the way we collect feedback and we're responding back to them. But with the form specifically, we are limited by the technology.
What about making it public for people?
The borough budget consultation, I'm gonna ask Alan.
Yeah, so the written responses are actually, they're not public, and these are not public meetings. They're, we say that they're meetings between different agencies, the boards being an agency, each being an agency, and between the agencies. Another reason for that is we've recently have kind of pushed on these written responses, and for the board's sake, kind of to get more clear, straightforward information to the agenda items. Before it was just kind of like, here's the agenda, we'll talk on it, we'll discuss it, and sometimes a lot of the agencies would come back and say that they had to follow up and get back to you. So this was kind of our effort to get more clear responses to your agendas. As far as the agency representation, this is something that we've been working on. In the past, we've always and continue to push for the highest levels, decision makers, not only borough-specific people who really know these specific projects, but also the decision makers to be in the room. Some agencies are great. The sanitation commissioner, she comes to every single borough consultation that she has. And others also send deputy commissioners consistently. But when it comes to some agencies, they continue to send community liaisons. And with the example of the Department of Buildings specifically, I know the district managers were kind of taken aback by that lack of representation last year, and came together and wrote a letter with the borough president, I believe. And they did respond to that letter, and we've gotten some kind of hopeful feedback that this year, maybe it'll be a little bit better. But as far as, our role, there is a limit to how much we can do, and a lot of the push in the past has come from us reiterating the board's concern for having highest levels of representation available. So I guess to answer your question, that it is an ongoing concern and something that we keep working on. But it always helps to have board input and borough presidents' help to get the best agency representation at those meetings.
Yes.
It's not a question, it's just saying,
Yeah,
I hate
yeah.
to take up time and slow things down, but I just want to jump on the two topics. One is that what Board 3 mentioned about having to basically do their own process, and I think, and including them putting it into the system, and I think you've heard this before. So, and I just want to touch on the topic that you said, which is you're limited by the platform. And I think that is a significant, continues to be a significant issue for all of the Manhattan boards to go through this process, because they do end up having to do twice the amount of work. You guys are very good at responding and training, I gotta tell you, like we do appreciate that. But until there's, if it's a limit to the platform's a limit, then maybe we all need to collectively say in our budget responses, priorities that DCP needs some more money, or the city needs to put some more money into the platform, because until that platform is made user-friendly and workable, every board here is doing twice the amount of work for the sake of this platform, because they have to go through their entire process, their public transparency process, and this budget process, and then have to spend all that time inputting it into this platform, and never being able to use that in a really helpful way. So I will just say to communicate that to the boards, that if that's what's needed to happen, if this year we all put in an expense request to say more money for this platform to be made more user-friendly, then okay, but I would just express that to you guys and to borough presidents. It's still, we're still doing double the work for this, for the sake of, I think, sounds like most of the agencies need to feel like they're getting a better report. So,
I'm not going to comment on the expense request, but I will say that we are designing something for 59 community boards, and we take feedback from all 59 community boards. And we also have heard that there are a lot of boards that perhaps did not have processes in place, and the form has actually helped them. The forms actually help them organize the way they collect inputs from their communities, has organized the way they talk about issues, and has sort of streamlined the way they think and communicate those issues back to the city. So we're finding as well on there's some boards in Manhattan that do feel like they have to do things, twice, largely in part because they've been doing things a certain way for a really long time. And it is hard for you to say, okay, I'm going to completely transition into one way. But in your case, you also have to figure out what your needs are. And maybe the needs are that you have to work two processes for a while. But in building out a system for 59 boards, and we are working with you to make sure that it works for you, but it also has to work for other boards, and it has significantly improved a lot of the way some of the other boards have been operating. I just want to make that clear.
You want to push back on that?
no, well,
Or other chairs, or people who've had different experience in terms of adopting this new process or template?
I know the person that's been using it has had terrible times with it. It is very labor intensive.
Yeah, we work with Penny a lot on the forum as well.
Yeah.
And I will say that Jesse has awesome ideas, and we've incorporated a lot of his ideas into our process over the last 2 years.
No, I just wanted to echo what Jesse was saying. More user-friendly, more adaptable, would make it easier.
Yeah.
I also probably, I don't know about other boards, but we do take the month of August off.
Right.
So unless we're really working hard during the year, and there are lots of priorities, we have a short window to get more input from the community. So, especially, many of us have our last meeting in September at the end of the month. And so we only have, or even, October. So getting things revised is often a challenge. I hate to ask for more time, but somehow we need to look at that schedule a little bit better.
Well, you have,
Yeah.
you just take it in,
Yeah.
yeah, true.
What we did this year, the first year we've done it, is in April and May. We went to each of our standing committees. and took up part of the meeting to work on the district needs. And then their assignment was to look at it and get back to us. And so we'll have it published by in August, a small subcommittee will finish writing everybody's notes into one document, because that helped the process
What a
tremendously.
good idea.
Yeah.
But
That's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm. We'll take one more question, or two more questions. There's a pressing one. Yes,
So
one.
sort of related to this question, I know that it has come up before in borough boards, how different community boards do the budget process. Is the borough president's office going to do something similar, like with the bylaws, to sort of look at all the community board budget processes and see like what are best practices? I know that DCP said that they were going to look at best practices, but some community boards don't have budget committees, or some have just got a budget committee, and so, it could be really helpful to have best practices
Right, yeah.
for everyone, so that, the process doesn't get lost in these timelines.
In terms of that's not something we're planning to incorporate into the bylaws template that we have.
In terms of like what you did with the looking.
Oh, like
at
a
all
similar
the
process.
similar
Yeah,
process.
we're open to that. I mean, this raises a lot of questions, not only in terms of, like, for example, how many here have actually have submitted into the template, have a password to submit, right? And then sometimes it's the chairs, sometimes it's the committee chairs, so all of that works out differently by community board. You see the slide there that had the 7 areas? So some of you might be saying, oh, the 7 areas, that kind of maybe mirrors committees. Are our committees aligned with those 7 areas? With the exception that we have to have a SLA committee, a personnel committee, which is not there. We might have a problem with land use, housing, and economic development being in one category, which is what OMB and DCP have, but for us it might be different. So, how much you align your current structure with what the new process is something that you'll all probably discuss independently in terms of how to make this easier. So I think we'll definitely take that into consideration of doing a kind of similar process, or at least just a meeting amongst ourselves just to discuss it, even if we don't formalize it the way we did with the bylaws committee, which took a long time, as you can imagine. We're still working on refining the bylaws.
that idea seemed interesting, of having our chairs input along the way, but does that cause a problem in the document if there are multiple versions?
No,
Okay.
more than one person. You just have to save what you do. There's a save button as long as you save.
And if I go on, can I see what others have done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now, in terms of, since community boards vary so much, not only in terms of, how they're organized somewhat, but more so in terms of population, anywhere from 70,000 to 220,000. Have you heard any pushback that because of the variation in population size and even in area mass, limiting community boards to 20 expense responses and 40 capital requests is somewhat arbitrary or harmful to certain community boards over others?
I'm gonna ask Lester to comment.
Well, it's not a firm rule, that limit. It's a recommendation.
Okay.
Many boards have exceeded it. We would just caution that sometimes in submitting a lot of requests, you're overwhelming an agency in terms of their ability to review and respond to the request, because they're given a deadline to review and to respond to your requests. And so that should be a consideration. The Parks Department last year got approximately 750 requests from the 59 community boards, and they just had several weeks to review and respond to all 750. So, some boards have exceeded the limit, and we've allowed as many requests as have been submitted to be passed along to the agencies, and require the agencies to respond to each and every one that was submitted.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that, because community boards in Manhattan are so overachievers. I thought you were going to say Parks received 750 requests, 700 of which were from Manhattan. That's where I thought you were going with that. I'm sorry.
If I got down to knowing the statistics on that level, borough by borough, and it might be time for me to put in my paper.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We want to say that the Borough President's Office for the last 4 years has been very supportive of the reforms that DCP and OMB have been doing around this. We held 3 focus groups for DCP to present as they were creating the different online application for district managers to respond, for chairs to respond. We've held over 8 trainings on the community portal, the Zola, census. We had the Census Bureau come here and give training on the census data. And we're recently, many of you heard, are releasing our own application called BoardStat around 3-in-1 requests that we want to be able to streamline it in a way where you can create charts and graphs to help your narrative and input it into this whole process in a seamless way. In addition to like I mentioned, Matthew Washington and Vladimir Martinez in our budget department holding trainings around the role of the community board in the development of the statement of district needs. So we put a lot of into this, and we like a lot of the features that it has and how it's been developed. Most particularly, a lot of community boards were concerned that when it was paper-based, and that year after year certain requests were being made and they were denied summarily, or it was not known of what the response was, in terms of the reason for the denial. Now the way that it's been organized with the drop-down menus, it really disciplines you in terms of what request you make, of what agency, of what program, because often before that, sometimes requests were made of programs and agencies that no longer existed. Or it's just, so this really disciplines you in that. And then I think there's also a feature that allows them for more transparency and accountability over time for a request that's been denied, a decade, 4 years, 5 years, why, how, and if the community board is really passionate about it, you at least have this number now of this particular agency has a higher compliance rate with your request versus this other agency which rejects most of your requests. All of that is able to now be tracked because of the automated aspect of it. So I think that while we still have to get used to this new system, because it is new, it requires a shift in some of the work. I think that the long-term value added from this in terms of your work with agencies in specific is going to be promising. So that's why our office was very excited about the changes that were made. Next we go to, you want to go to the BP's report? Next we go to the Borough President's report out.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
So a few things. On Sunday, we are hosting a Caregiving 101 event at Fordham Law School. We are actually past capacity. But if you would like to attend, just email me and let me know. We do have a waiting list, but we do want to try and squeeze in community board members if possible. It's going to be from noon to 4. And we're really excited about it, and we've seen a real outpouring of folks and caregivers that are really wanting to get resources, learn about techniques for, how to basically support the work that they do for the people that they care for. Next up, we also, sort of in the same vein of caregiving and sort of age-friendly folks, we put out our supermarket report last month, which I hope folks have had an opportunity. We did a mailing to all the community boards, so you should have received a copy, but if you would like additional copies of the report, please just let me know and we can drop some copies off. We also have come out with an age-friendly senior guide to the supermarket report, which is actually right out there. So again, please pick some up, take some back to the district office. Let us know if you need any additional copies. As a note about employees here, we have 2 people that are leaving. So Drew Lombardi, who is the community liaison for boards 3, 4, and 5, will be leaving our office to go to grad school in Paris. Lucky person. And so I'm currently now interviewing for a new liaison for 3, 4, and 5. His last day is next Friday, but I just ask that folks that cover those boards, district managers and chairs, if you all can just send me your emails or your questions, I'll sort of be managing his boards until we find a replacement. And hopefully that will be by the end of August so that, the new person can get jump-started for September. And then Vlad Martinez, who is our budget director, also will be leaving us next week to go to law school at CUNY, so we're very proud of him. And his last day will also be next Friday. So again, any budget information that you may have, you can send that directly to Matthew Washington, our Deputy BP. Also, Jessica will probably be taking some of those emails as well, so feel free to also send stuff to her. In addition, we will be holding a public meeting on the Garment Center coming up. For folks that are interested in that, we will make sure that you know about that. And then we've also just a couple of events to sort of keep in your mind for August. We will be having a Dominican Heritage event sometime in August, and we'll make sure that folks get more information on that. We will also be doing a women's equality event also in August, which is really exciting. And sort of ongoing projects and working groups that we are forming here at the Borough President's Office. We have a working group on Mount Sinai that's meeting monthly, led by David Dodge, who heads up our policy analyst for transportation and healthcare. So we're doing that. Obviously, we're still working with the Beta NYC folks to refine board stat and board track, and I know that they're putting together a steering committee of community board members for input and how to refine the process and to make it work for you. So we'll be sending out an email shortly to chairs and DMs that we hope that you can also share with, if you're not the tech point person on your board, share it with the tech point person so that they can participate on the steering committee. And then two other things. As every summer, we are overrun by interns here in our office, lovingly overrun by interns. We have, I think, close to 100 that are cycling in 3 different phases. And so they've been working on some really cool projects. Actually, after this meeting, they will be looking at information from the community board this past cycle, analyzing some of the information that we were able to gather through the application in terms of geographical boundaries and who exactly is represented on the board. All of this information really helps us as for the next year when we go into recruiting. Also, just know that I'll probably be checking in with you all sometime in September to again, start that slow process of who you're looking for. And what the boards really need in terms of representation. But we also have our teens doing 2 particular projects. First, they're doing Teens Take the Waterfront. They've split the waterfront into sections, and they're going around to see what different type of resources are currently available at the waterfront and looking at what activities could be made available to teenagers and to other young people to encourage them to have active stewardship of the waterfront. And then also they are working on a closed Rikers working group amongst the teens and our young interns, and that sort of will evolve into us forming an internal working group here in our office on closing Rikers. So a lot of exciting things over the summer. As always, if you need anything from us, please do not hesitate to email, call, send a smoke signal. We're here.
And we also held a community board leadership training series at John Jay about 3 weeks ago. Just a note about training. Training is great, and we're very happy that we're able to offer the 15 separate trainings that we have and unique trainings on resolution writing, parliamentary procedure, land use, landmarks, etc. But they're only as great as the people who attend and participate. And I gotta say that I don't think as many of your community board members are availing themselves of these trainings that our office offers. And when we do offer them, you should really, really make it an effort to not only get the word out to the board members, but to encourage them to attend the training. Because often when things don't happen the way they should, they say, well, isn't there training on this? But there is training on this. And with that said, we're going to, in the next 2-3 weeks, you'll be receiving an email of a very intensive kind of specialized Robert's Rules of Order parliamentary procedure training that we're doing.
Wow.
We're going to do it in our uptown location or further uptown. We'll do, that's another thing too with training. Sometimes we do it downtown, it's not good for someone. We do it uptown, it's not good. We do it on Saturdays, we do it on Fridays. Lucky for us, we do it all, even in the evenings, So we'll continue to offer different formats and different schedules of trainings. But if you can make these parliamentary trainings that we're going to do one very specific to Community Board 12, and then we're gonna do 2 where other people could register. And that's gonna have like simulations or role plays of particular scenarios that happen in community boards. We feel that might be an insightful way to help learn these concepts more intuitively.
In terms of dates?
We don't have the dates yet for the parliamentary training. Yes.
Will it be live streamed for those who can't get there?
I don't think
Or
those.
recorded?
Yeah, I don't think those will be live streamed, but we can discuss,
Recording it?
a type of online training that we could.
I think online,
But those won't be, we have a relationship with the Metropolitan Association of Parliamentarians, and they're the consultants that we contract with to conduct these trainings, because we want to make sure they're top notch, so I think there's a lot of proprietary and intellectual, issues around that. All right. Chair reports, Community Board Chair 1.
I'll be brief this morning. One of our large communities is Battery Park City, and there was a 7-member board that manages the whole community. In fact, collects both property tax and ground rent on all the buildings. But we've never had, via the legislation, the right to have residents on that board. And through the good work of our state senator and 2 assembly members, Senator Swadron and Assembly members Gliff and Yulin, we have legislation approved by both the Assembly and the Senate, which will be forwarded to the governor, to change the legislation to allow a minimum of 2 residents on that board. So that was a big win for us. The second item is that the Downtown Alliance, or local bid, has funded a study for a security area around the stock exchange for some safety and mobility enhancements. Right now, with the flush tourists that are there and the way the security is set up, it's really become both dangerous and uninviting to people. And so that report will be due out later in the year, and we're a part of that with stakeholders. This also dovetails into Department of Transportation has also approved a study of traffic in most of Lower Manhattan. We have that historic street grid, which is not easy to navigate, but because of the conversions from commercial to residential, plus tourism and commercial work, the traffic and the sanitation has become a major problem. So we'll be working on that. And those are the major issues for now, besides working on our district needs statement.
Thank you. Community Board 2, Terry?
rather than a report, I'm going to ask for some help because it's the same things that I've reported. We have been overwhelmed with street crowds. These pop-up events that are now happening. The most recent one basically shut down what seemed to be somewhere around an 8-block area of narrow streets with screaming kids, screaming. I have video. And I don't know if other boards are affected. For example, if there's a concert with a very famous person in a board's area and you get that total lockup. So the problem is it's not illegal, right? So we're talking to SEPA, we're talking to the council member about possible legislation, but people have a right to assemble, but do they have a right to completely close down street grids? Do they have a right to pack into where people can't get in and out of their homes? And do they have a right to totally overwhelm the NYPD? So if anybody else is having problem with basically street crowds, I'd like to partner, just their strength against numbers in numbers.
Are these purely commercial events? Or are they
What they
social?
are little pop-up stores. So they don't even always have a nexus to the community, but these are sometimes small spaces, and they either have a product drop, or they have a celebrity appearance with the product drop. This was Logan Paul, which I think only one of us knows.
A young tween.
I appreciate that.
But I know now, and I've seen a lot of YouTube. Just totally shut down. On my way here, I stopped off and the barricades were out. And the precinct is doing what they can, but really need support for legislation. So I just wanted to know if anybody else is having that problem, maybe theaters, concerts, other pop-ups, or is that just the joy of Soho, NoHo, and Little Italy? Thanks. You know, victims of our own charm. And the other thing is, at least 4 boards, perhaps 2 through 6, anybody who is along 14th Street or affected by the L train shutdown, I'd like to create a cross-board task force, because we're all facing the same thing on this side of the river. So especially 3, 4, 5, and 6. We'd like to, perhaps after this meeting, get together. So instead of a report, and a request for collaboration.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
CB3?
Just on L train, we've been real involved. There are actually several working groups that have come together. So if you are meeting, I would suggest just talking to David Dodge, who's been real involved in the various reports.
I'll connect you guys.
Thank you. Oh, David, yeah, thanks.
Thank you for that. Community Board 3?
Hi, everyone. Jamie from Community Board 3. We spent most of July working on our district needs statement, which is what we do every year. I want to give a shout out to all the members who are working extremely hard to craft it, as well as our district office, who works tirelessly to pull all of the thoughts together into coherent sentences, and we'll hopefully publish that, or rather, we'll approve it on Tuesday and then publish it for the world thereafter. We had an election last month, so I'm here for a while longer. I was reelected.
Congratulations.
We had the first meeting of our Chinatown Neighborhood Planning Subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of our Land Use Committee devoted to working with the city and stakeholders to crafting a neighborhood zoning plan for the Chinatown area in our district. Of course, CBs 1 and 2 will be having conversations about any way that we can all work together were that to, overlap into your districts as well. I will leave it at that. I, of course, welcome any opportunities to collaborate on tough problems like the L train.
Thank you. CB4?
Good morning. My name is Alan Oster, co-chair of the Arts, Culture, Education, and Street Life Committee of CB4, sitting in for our chair, Dolores Rubin. A couple of items we've been working on the past couple of months. Block 675, which incorporates a large area between 11th and 12th, 29th, 30th Street, which abuts the Holland Tunnel project. We've been discussing and reviewing the environmental impact study there, making some suggestions to the city on that. The ongoing saga of the Port Authority building reconstruction. An RFP just went out for a planning process bid. We recently met with the PA on that, so we're working continuously on trying to get that resolved. Our affordable housing plan is being revised. CB4, as you know, has impacted the community with a lot of the affordable housing, and we're proud to be in the forefront of that. But on a very personal note for a lot of our community members has been the increase in bike fatalities that have occurred. And our co-chair, Christine Bethair of the Transportation Committee, has been meeting with the agencies there, and that is a big problem now, and also in regards to the bus traffic on our residential streets, the tour buses that have been coming down our residential streets due to the changes in the traffic patterns. Of course, also 14th Street, so we'll try to work with that on that. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. CB5?
Hello, everyone. My name is John Murray. I'm the chair of our Land Use, Housing, and Zoning Committee here for Vicky. East Midtown zoning, something we've been working a long 5-year process is reaching to a close. The subcommittee the committee for the council votes on July 27th, which will present then the full recommendation. So we had a meeting with Councilmember Garodnick to just emphasize as the last final negotiations are taking place. One of the strong positions we have is there's a mayoral, well, it's not a mayoral committee, but it's a committee that's in charge with dispensing public use funds. And the composition of the committee is 5 mayoral appointees and 4 community members. So it kind of permanently tilts to whatever the current administration is, the ability to have discretion over use of those funds. So our request was that either one of the community members has to be in partnership with the majority vote, or that the makeup is changed so that the community representation for the public use funds can't just be permanently overridden. And then one more request that we made is currently with the plan, each project gets approved in a vacuum, and with some of the super tall buildings that have been occurring, light and air, when viewed individually and their own impact on specifically shadows and just viewpoints, may be innocuous on their own, but when taken in concert in a long-term development, it can have significant impact. And currently there's no formal review process for future development, so we requested that that be looked at. We're currently with CB4 active in the Garment Center Steering Committee, which is the effort to engage a proactive dialogue with all the stakeholders as the potential garment core is being re-envisioned in Sunset Park. Our position is very strong with CB4 and the borough president that a core and a hub needs to be protected, as it's very important. And there's been a lot of dialogue, and it's ongoing. There's 2 more meetings and a public meeting, as was mentioned. So we're actively working with that. From a landmarks perspective, we formed a study group to really evaluate a lot of buildings on the 57th Street corridor. This was prompted by a rather rapid demolition of a building that we thought could have had significant status as a landmark building. So we've made 10 recommendations for calendar to the landmark committee. One specifically, and we thank the Borough President's Office for supporting us in this, was at 316 Fifth Avenue, Casco and Casco building. It's a Beaux-Arts building, and a demolition permit was filed, and unless that building gets calendared, it's as of right to demolish it, and it's just a beautiful example of the architecture at the time, so we're really hopeful that that gets reviewed. And then just in echo of what was said by CB4, we're requesting the DOT study the circle at Columbus Circle for bike lane traffic. There's several accidents, it's not safe, and it happens to be a conduit where a lot of people going east to west and north to south have to travel through. So we requested that they look at the Grand Central Terminal in Brooklyn as an example of how you can make it work. And it's somewhat convoluted, but it has proved to be a success.
Thank you for that. CB6?
My name is Claude Winfield. I'm the Vice Chair of Community Board 6. I'll just talk on 3 items briefly. As we moved to recess in June, we immediately had to have a special full board meeting to pass a resolution on zoning text amendment for the second area, which deals with mid-block buildings, high, tall skyscrapers, effort, so it's being pushed by Ben Kalis. And applications was filed by the East River 50s Alliance, Councilmember Garodnick, and the Borough President's Office. And we passed a resolution in support of the proposed changes that they recommended on the 27th of June. So that was a special. We had 2 full board meetings in the month of June. And then we were slightly surprised by a sighting of Safe Haven, that we weren't properly notified in terms of the siting of the Safe Haven that's coming into our district. And we had to have a number of meetings and discussions with DHS, BRC, and on July the 12th, we held a meeting for the community stakeholders. We invited all of the neighborhood associations, block associations to that meeting, and the Borough President's Office, and several elected officials, Kavanaugh, Mendez, and the Borough President was represented, Kavanaugh, Mendez, and Garodnick were there. We went extensively through what the program was going to be. The siting of the proposed siting for the Safe Haven is on 17th Street, which is right adjacent to Beth Israel. And it is actually Beth Israel's property. We do have some concerns about it. It doesn't meet ADA compliance. There's an elevator that has to be repaired and fixed before they can move in. And their deadline, their optimal time for moving in was July the 1st. So that's an issue that's before us right now that we're going to have to be dealing with over the summer. The last issue is we've been in discussions and talks, I don't know, Jamie, is it 2 years, 3 years with the Big U?
At least.
Yeah, about 2 or 3 years, the East Side Resiliency Project that's coming up the East Side from Montgomery Street all the way up to supposedly 23rd Street. I requested a change in the location to 25th Street. And the rationale for that was that we just invested over $3 million in expansion of Astor Levy Park area, which we expanded not just to be the pool and the administration building, but we expanded it to add, we closed down the street, 25th Street, and added park area to that. So it's a venue where you can see through and you can walk through. It's like an open area, and it expands the parkland. They initially agreed or did proposals to look at that change, but now they want to bring the wall to 24th Street and tie in with the Veterans Hospital that just did a flood wall. So we're in ongoing negotiations with them because we really want to keep our open park area, and we don't want to have it open for flooding according to the 100-year plan. If they don't bring the wall to 25th Street, then it will get totally flooded. And they have points of view in terms of planting of trees, in terms of making it possible that it could be easily repaired after it's flooded. But our concern is keeping the park the way it is. We actually alienated the Robert Moses Park in order to do the extension of this park. And so we don't want to give up another park area. That's basically it.
Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up with what you were saying around the safe haven siting. So we've had conversations with DHS, and I know that we all work really closely with DHS and HRA, and Heidi Schmidt in particular is the Manhattan person. DHS, it seems like, has a bit of an archaic way that they notify folks about the siting of shelters, which they have sort of promised us that they would look into to make sure that instead of sending it to sort of random city agency representatives, or even like, you know, even here in our office, that they're actually sending it directly to me and making sure that, you know, for the community board, that they're notifying the chair and district manager. According to the law, they actually don't have to. And so, but I think DHS has recognized that, you know, with this safe haven siting on 17th Street, that they want to work with the community and be good community partners to make sure that any issues that need to be addressed are done in a really open and transparent way. And so, you know, I really encourage you that as you're talking with Heidi, maybe on even other items, that you just continue to reinforce that, you know, if there is going to be a shelter siting in your community district, that be shared directly with the community board. We on our part will certainly also be pushing for that.
Yeah, can I add one other thing now that you mentioned it?
Very quickly.
Yeah, real quickly. What comes into play is fair share and the concept of fair share.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to my original question that I asked about the city statement of needs and the city charter, chapter 203 and 204. So you should be cognizant of that when this kind of incident occurs in your district.
Yes, thank you.
CB7?
We've been, thanks to Ports 1, 2, and 3, we're revising our secondary street naming guidelines. Well, we're creating secondary street naming guidelines. We're concerned with the super talls. We have a resolution to DOT to work with Ports 4 and 5 on Columbus Circle to make it safer, to make it a safe passageway. We also asked, and this involves our boards to the north of us, that the Frederick Douglass Circle also be made safer, and that the bike lane on 110th be a protected bike lane, because we feel that unprotected bike bike lane on that street would just create more chaos for pedestrians and others. On the shelter issue, I went to, DHS had a meeting last Thursday where they invited people from the city to come and talk about, there were people from some of the community boards and some of the block associations. And then we were divided up into 4 different boroughs with our, Manhattans with Heidi. And we all came up with the same ideas, that we wanted more transparency, we wanted earlier notification, and then we wanted support when we were trying to set up a CAB.
CB8?
Good morning, I'm Debbie Teitelbaum, second vice chair, sitting in for Jim Clines. So CB8 seems to be mostly about construction these days. Last night's conversation had to do with supporting the changes that HPD made recently regarding having inclusionary housing stay within the project that's being developed versus putting that housing outside, further out into the district or even possibly within 10 blocks outside the district. So the community board works hard to have inclusionary and affordable housing within the community. Another issue last night, Landmarks works very hard to really preserve those buildings, even sometimes when it seems like changes that are being made are no big deal. They might be over time, so also the community board has very lengthy conversations about really preserving the beauty of many of those blocks. Jim also asked me to include that the esplanade around 90th Street is falling down, so the community board is working, and the committee is working to get additional funding to fix that. They're working pretty quickly and hard on that, so that's in the process right now. And finally, the Jim started a Veterans Committee this month, and they met for the first time, which I thought was really exciting. And there's something in front of the mayor right now to be City Council passed. It's a statement, I guess, that to include people in uniform as far as anti-discrimination laws, to include them in the anti-discrimination. So that's awaiting the mayor's signature, and the community board voted in favor of that as well. So that's what's going on.
Thank you.
I wanted to just follow up, sorry. So 2 things, I know that there was a Councilmember Kalos Esplanade meeting along with Congresswoman Maloney meeting scheduled for 4 p.m. today that was canceled. So if anyone was planning on going, it's been canceled and will be rescheduled. And then also congratulations on the new Vets Committee. Actually, the gentleman who started or helping to work on that committee also reached out to our office to see if other boards would maybe be interested in also starting some kind of either Veterans Committee or task force. We will be sort of sending out a letter introducing their organization and the work that they've been doing on 8. So just be on the watch for that shortly.
Just to add to that, we did some reorganization, and we established a committee for health and human services, and one of our members added a suggested veterans, and we had that on the agenda now with the Mayor's Department of Veterans Affairs. So
we love that.
Great idea. Great. And surprisingly, the turnout of people who had never approached us.
I'll let them know. Thanks.
That's great. Community Board 9?
Cool. Ken Miles, Youth Education and Libraries, filling in for Padmore. Just a couple of updates. We've been approached, both CB9 and 10, around collaboration on an RFP for Next Generation Wireless, Platform for Advanced Wireless. It's an initiative that was presented to us in conjunction with academic institutions, as well as the City of New York. So right now we're discussing kind of next steps and thoughts and seeing where we go with this, taking considerations in, of course, for the community, also for opportunities for what this could mean, since they're targeting Harlem as a focus area, and they've reached out to us. We've been working with CB7 on the Housing Forum. We're also working on the Broadway Coalition, as well as thinking about the Broadway corridor The vacancy, the Manhattan Borough President's vacancy report came out, and there are just some alarming trends, so figuring out a way to collaborate around what we can do. We've engaged with the new superintendent for the district. So Youth Education Libraries has had a chance to sit down and talk and figure out opportunities for collaboration. The previous superintendent had served in that capacity for 10 years. So thinking about what that can mean for the district. Our housing committee continues to meet over the summer to discuss issues that are critical to the district. So they're keeping busy. And last but certainly not least, the bylaws are being finalized for September return to session.
Thank you. CB10.
Good morning, I'm John Lynch, First Vice Chair of CB10, on behalf of our Chair Cicely Harris. Over the past few months, CB10 was involved in an initiative to prevent and condemn the use of the term Soha to refer to Harlem below 125th Street. It's been kicking around for about 10 years, this name being used here and there. But when a large national real estate company moved to the neighborhood and called themselves the Soha team in big red letters on their storefront, that was a bit much. So our board member, Danny Tyson, brought it to our attention. Our Economic Development Committee took up the issue. We drafted a strong resolution condemning this practice. And then we called a rally press conference. We went out to the corner and thought, well, no one's really going to show up. And a few people showed up. Scott Stringer showed up. He had called this out about 10 years ago when he was borough president. So Scott Stringer was there, our new state senator, Brian Benjamin, former chair of CB10, and a large turnout from the faith-based community. And the media was there. Fast forward to today, the real estate company, after ignoring us, has taken down the sign. They've changed their name. The story is reported yesterday on NPR, All Things Considered. It was reported in the New York Times. There's a letter to the editor in the Times today. We've had interview requests from Russian TV, Philadelphia TV, Los Angeles TV. So it's kind of a win, I think. But what we're going to do, we said, okay, now we have all this energy and support, sort of like when Obama was elected the first time. What do we do with this? So we are going to have sponsor some forums and discussions, basically asking the question, so Harlem is not Soha, but what is Harlem? We know that there are changes, and what does it mean, and what can we do going forward? So that's what we're going to try to do with this momentum. Segueing into another topic that makes people think of gentrification. Whole Foods opens tomorrow on 125th Street and Lenox Avenue. Chair Harris and I met with the general manager and their outreach person last week. We've been speaking with them along the way. They'll be bringing over 300 jobs to the community. Apparently half of those jobs are existing employees who requested transfer to be closer to home, and this is what we want, of course, is local employment. They'll also have upwards of 30 local Harlem vendors who will have their products in the store, working with someone who's going to be dedicated to helping guide them, to shelf space at Whole Foods, to, the sky's the limit. And they've now said publicly that this Whole Foods will be the lowest price Whole Foods. Apparently this is something that, apparently Starbucks did this when they came up to Harlem years ago, and now Whole Foods is doing, they're going to be priced a little bit lower, so you guys are all welcome to come take advantage of that.
Best news I've ever heard.
We'll have to come visit.
So recently, Congressperson Carolyn Maloney contacted the economic development chairs of CB 10 and 11 because for years she's been fighting to bring pandas to New York City. And she wants to house them in the northern part of Central Park, up by the Mere, which we all know is the most beautiful, if underused, part of Central Park. So she contacted the CB 10 and 11, which abuts the park. Everybody loves the project, according to Representative Maloney. There's tons of money. The business community is throwing money at her for this. The Chinese government is on board. They're ready to ship pandas over here. IMPay has designed the panda section. Built it into the rocks or some such thing. So we're gonna have a joint meeting with CB 10 and 11 this summer to address it. Obviously, there are real questions, the devil's in the details. How much space are you taking? Are you taking away, existing area and amenities? Jobs, jobs, and jobs. What kind of jobs are there, and are they gonna be available to the local community? The Bronx Zoo apparently is also interested, so I think that's why Carol Maloney reached out to us, because there may be a little bit of a political fight there. There's some issue as to whether the Bronx Zoo can handle this. And also, we're told that monies that come into the Central Park Zoo, apparently revenues go to the city coffers. We're told that monies that come to the Bronx Zoo go to the National Wildlife Association,
Wildlife Conservation
some
Fund.
such thing. So we want, panda jobs to stay in Harlem and panda money to stay in New York City. And as my colleague from CB9 mentioned, we will be speaking with the folks from Columbia and other universities about this new high-end, next-generation Wi-Fi. And of course, the question will be, who's going to be benefiting from this, who's going to be profiting from this, and make sure that the community is among those who benefit and profit, and make sure you keep in contact with us going forward. Finally, Harlem Week starts in August. It's really Harlem Month. Kickoff event at Gracie Mansion, August 3rd, and then many, many events, street fairs, fun runs, and various things celebrating Harlem.
Thank you for that. And I think you answered your own question that you started off with. So it's Harlem, home of the panda. CB11. I know, just kidding. For all those watching through web stream, just kidding.
No symbolic intent there.
How many are watching?
CB11, no, CB12.
Last but not least, I guess, we've had a very busy summer and a busy July, and three main issues: zoning, transportation, and updating our website and the new office software and hardware that we are now installing. So just let me briefly cover a few of those areas. We've received a ULIP for Seaman Avenue rezoning. We had to hold a public hearing, which was held on July 13th. They wanted to have an upzone from an R72 to an R8A to reduce height. There were some difficulties with that proposal in terms of blocking other windows and sites of adjoining properties. The commissioner, DCB Commissioner Lago, suggested this was a lot of things in the proposal of the application were not applicable, and suggested that it should not be approved. And in fact, a resolution passed unanimously at the public hearing where 116 residents showed up, unanimously opposing this rezoning, which was approved at the Committee of the Whole on the 18th itself, since we are in hiatus. So that was one rezoning that went down in our community, and we expect others to come up eventually during this busy summer. The Inwood NYC update was given to us at this public hearing, but no information was given on the Inwood library rezoning. So those were the only issues that we had with zoning so far. In terms of transportation, we have passed some resolutions in reference to give us some alternative options in terms of transportation on both waterfronts for ferry service and Amtrak. And in view of what happened in CB9 in terms of the fire and the derailment, we were a little bit ahead of that schedule in asking these requests. And obviously you saw in the newspaper the 168th Street where people were standing because of that difficult problem. We're also getting our elevators at 168th redone, which has been a long haul in reference to that. We also have requested from Port Authority New York to fix the streets, the roadways over the Trans-Manhattan Expressway. That is 6 streets from Broadway to Amsterdam Avenue that are falling apart. It's very difficult because you can't do milling on that thin layer because there's a highway underneath and obviously the building structure. So they have, Port Authority has this in their plans, 2019 to 2022. Obviously, that is much too late. Unfortunately, we did have I had a contact at the Small Business Forum sponsored by Congressman Adriano Espaillat. They were there, and that matter was brought up to them, and we could see that they did respond recently, and we will be looking into see if we can fast track that. That's got to be a relationship between DOT, obviously, and the Port Authority, and also different kinds of equipment has to be used instead of the heavy trucks and for that particular milling. There will be a transportation summit. I don't have much detail. This Saturday, sponsored by Congressman Espaillat. And if you check our website or our Facebook, you should have some further information about that. We are updating our website, and that is something that I should say I'm updating the website, and that's something that we are seriously concerned about. There's a lot of detail. It's very difficult to find. We would like to make sure that it's on a level that people can very easily get information, or on a level that we can get more detailed information and do searches, and it's a big project, and we've started a couple of months ago, and we hope to be up and running with the new website in the fall, if not sooner than that. So that's my report right now, and that's it.
Thank you. I just want, while you're updating that website, or creating a new, make sure that the current website still has the agendas and the minutes and all the content.
Yeah, we will.
Particularly because of the rezoning and the inward library, everything, we do receive calls about.
Yeah, we will, when we transfer all the information to the new website, all the material will be updated, and some of the stuff in terms of the resolution minutes will be preserved. I must say that I created a special archive section because there's no reason for you to look for 20 years on one page for all the resolutions when they should be in some kind of reasonable format or indexable for, let's say, 5 years, and then turning them over at the end of the year to an archive section. So we'll be doing that in some reasonable fashion, and there'll be a guide for that. So, as I said, we're rethinking how we're going to approach things, and it'll be a little bit smoother than the past. There'll be more images and more graphics, more maps, more links to a lot of other features that are available in terms of IT, which is my field. So I'm just saying that it's something.
If you're looking for a fantastic model, CB9 is a pretty good place to start.
We have, and
in terms of bylaws and websites, and I know some of you have already made a lot of individual progress in that, our office does want to continue to provide the technical assistance supports around that. And I know that both with the websites and with the bylaws, we have done a lot on that. We just haven't gotten it to you yet. So we're going to try to get that to you right before because you've done all this effort, and before you start adopting new stuff, we want to make sure that you've had an opportunity to at least review what this office has been working on for in some instances several years. Any board updates? Any updates from council member reps? Okay, now, do we have a motion to?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second? All in favor? Okay, great. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone, if you can just make sure you sign in on the sign-in sheet so we know who's here.
Yeah.
If you didn't get a chance to.
Okay.